Stephen Fennick from Tech Guide here, and today we are talking about the S25 Edge from Samsung, the Galaxy S25 Edge. Remarkably thin phone, goes on sale this week. We've been using it ourselves for a couple of weeks, so this is our review of the product, and let's look at it closely. As you can see, it is quite thin. It's 5.8 millimeters, so that's space between my fingers, 5.8 millimeters. And has a 6.7 inch display, which happens to be the same size display as you would see on the Galaxy S25 Plus. So Super AMOLED, 120 Hertz, the exact same display. This massive talking point, of course, is just how thin this smartphone is. And when you do get it in your hand, I've got to say I was quite surprised how thin it was. So compared to other smartphones, handling a regular smartphone after looking at the S25 Edge, the other devices felt a bit like a brick. So that's the massive selling point, okay? Thin is in, it's back in. And the reason I say that is because Samsung released the S25 Edge, it releases this week, but they first unveiled it, they teased it at the S25 launch earlier this year in January, as a matter of fact. So what that did, that told customers that yes, here's the new S25 range. Go for your life, have a look at these. If you want to upgrade now, then good as gold. But it did send a message to say that there's something else coming, and that this is the device that we saw on display at that event. So it's this remarkably thin. It was next to other devices for us to give it a comparison. In fact, I'll give you that same comparison right now. So what I've got here in this hand is the S25 Ultra, and over here we have the S25 Edge. So you can see quite clearly just the difference in that thickness. So I'll bring it a bit closer so you can see. S25 Edge 5.8. I think the S25 Ultra is 8 point something in millimeters. So just there you can see the difference. And as I said, once you get this in your hand, everyone who I've handed this to says, "Whoa, that is thin," and they really appreciate the fact that they've managed to fit nearly all the main features in. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but the elephant in the room is Apple. Now, as I said, Samsung first teased this back in January, and there's been rumors circulating about Apple releasing the same thing. In fact, I'm 99% certain that Apple is going to release a very similar product. The iPhone Air is what everyone's calling it, the iPhone 17 Air. And it is going to be positioned in a similar way to the S25 Edge. Now, the S25 Edge is a flagship product. This starts at 1,849 Australian dollars. So that's one rung below the S25 Ultra. So there's your S25, S25 Plus, the S25 Edge, and the S25 Ultra. Apple, according to the rumors, are going to do a similar thing. So they'll have the iPhone 17. They'll have, not sure if they're going to have an iPhone 17 Plus. Word is that the iPhone 17 Air is going to step into that spot. And then, of course, you'll have the 17 Pro and Pro Max. So it is going to be a more flagship-ended device. So it's going to be more towards the flagship side. So I think it's going to be a battle royale now between Samsung and Apple to produce a phone as thin as this. And if the rumors are to be believed, the iPhone 17 Air is going to have a similar thickness. I think 5.8 inches, 5.8 millimeters, which is what you have here. I think the iPhone 17 Air is only going to have one camera, not two. And so that's going to be the battle. We're going to see Apple and Samsung between them are going to set a new trend. But like it or not, Apple and Samsung, for that matter, have decided that thin is back in. Thin is the new trend. And I'm sure other brands are going to copy that as well. When you think about it, between Apple and Samsung, you're talking about the bulk of the market. And if they decide to do something, then guess what? The market is going to sit up and take notice. So let's talk about why they would make this device. Well, we know it is to put their version of a thin device in the market because they know Apple is going to do it. I think this is more of a look what we can do kind of product. I think 2 or 3 years ago, this would not have been possible. So my first question when I saw this very thin and quite light, it's only 163 grams. When I saw this thin and light device, my first question is, what are the compromises? Well, I'm happy to report there aren't many. Well, for a start, you've got one less camera. So the S25 Edge has the same main camera, 200 megapixel main camera as the Ultra. So in terms of your camera, you're still getting a decent system here. So 200 megapixel and 12, front camera is the same as the others. So in terms of your photography, obviously you're not going to have any periscope lens or any type of massive optical zoom because of the narrow chassis that you got on the device here. So if that's going to be a deal breaker, then this isn't for you. If you're really into your photography, you want all those features, you want that zoom, you want that extra lens, you want it all, then this might not be for you. So that's one compromise, let's call it, that Samsung had to make. Everything else on the device, in terms of the screen quality, performance, same processor as the other S25 range of smartphones as well. So in terms of performance, the same OS, the One UI 7, Android 15, all of those features are identical to what you'll find in the other Samsung devices. The only other compromise, if you want to call it that, is the size of the battery. Now the battery is 3,900 milliamp hours. Now, when you compare that to the Ultra has a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. Ultra would last a day and a half, if not close to 2 days, when I use it as my daily driver, not a problem. I'm happy to report that the S25 Edge, the battery easily lasts a whole day. In fact, by the end of the day, I'm probably down to 25%, 20%, and could easily sort of go through the night, but an overnight charge and I'm back to where I started. The other thing that helps too is that when I'm driving, my car has wireless charging, so it is getting a bit of a trickle charge while I'm driving as well. So battery's not a concern. I was a little worried when I first got it because a phone of this size, like look how thin that is, a phone of this size simply cannot have a battery, the same battery as a phone of this size. That was an engineering impossibility, having a battery in the Edge the same size as the Ultra. That was never going to happen. So the 3,900 milliamp hour battery, while less, of course, than the other smartphones, is still enough to get you through the day. So in terms of performance, tick exactly the same as what you would get, including all the Galaxy AI features. So all of the AI features you've seen on the other Samsung S25 devices, exactly the same experience as you'll get with the Edge. Photography, you're getting, I'd say, 3/4 of the experience of the other phones, especially the Ultra, probably 3/4 of the Ultra. And so if you can get by that, I've got to say, photos are great. You can see in my review on Tech Guide some of the photos I took. The camera is still excellent. And battery, I've already addressed. The battery life is not a problem. It's not like you're going to have to recharge it halfway through the day. In fact, the battery life improved as it got to know how I use the phone. So it adapted to me. I found that early on, I'd noticed the battery burning a little faster, and somehow the system was used to put some apps to sleep and did other things and got used to how I use the device, and it actually worked out quite well. But all in all, I'd say this is a winner. This is a really nice product. And as I said, everyone who I've shown this to, they can't believe how thin it is. I haven't put a case on it. Well, Samsung never gave me a case, but I did try the case when I first saw it. And even with a case on, it's still thin. So don't think, oh, well, putting a case on it's going to make it as fat as a normal phone. Well, no, because if you put a case on these larger phones, the normal size phone, that's going to make that bigger as well. So it's relative. Having a case on the S25 Edge, it's not going to make it the same size as your other devices. I've been walking around without a case, and luckily the S25 Edge is made of titanium. It's got Corning Gorilla Glass on the front as well. So I haven't dropped it though, thank God. But if I did, it will be able to handle it. The other question I've been asked is, can you bend it? Well, that's a bit of a stupid question, right? It is thin. I can bend this phone if you want me to. I can bend any phone. And I carry this around in my back pocket. And I've sometimes had it in my back pocket sitting down. I haven't been sitting directly on it, but it's been in my back pocket and it's still straight. It's still okay. And of course, you can bend any phone if you wanted to. This is still, despite its narrow dimensions, is still quite strong. Now, in terms of the price, I mentioned earlier, 1,849 Australian dollars is the starting price. So flagship device you got right here. And look and feel, the minute you get this in your hand, you'll realize, wow, I think I need a thin device. That's what I thought when I first got this in my hand. I think it's not until this moment that I knew I needed a thin device. The S25 Edge, the Galaxy S25 Edge, it goes on sale this week. You can read our complete review at techguide.com.au. Thanks for watching.